I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research with Parks Associates. And I'm so pleased to be joined today by Debbie Kimberly, who's the VP of Customer Energy Solutions with Austin Energy. Hi, Debbie, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, Jennifer. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today and joining the Smart Energy Summit community. There's been so much change in consumers' lives, in patterns and behaviors and work and across the country the past year. What can you tell us about what Austin Energy is seeing and how these changes are affecting your business?
This past year has been a year like none other. And when we closed out 2020, I think all of us said we never want to repeat 2020 again. And 2021 has posed its own set of challenges. On the plus side, I would say one of the things that's notable for us at Austin Energy was this last year, we celebrated our 125th anniversary. So it was a remarkable year in which to see how our industry has changed, not just over a year, but over a century and a quarter. So it's been nothing short of remarkable. And you look at the way our population has changed in Austin, that too is remarkable. Notwithstanding a global pandemic, an economic collapse, and everything else in between, we've seen more and more customers move to Austin, both residential and commercial. And we see customer growth that is really sustaining us, though our energy consumption levels are very, very low. So that's good news for somebody like myself that's focused on customer energy solutions and sustainability. I would say one of the things that both the pandemic and as y'all know, I live here in Central Texas. I never expected that I would be sitting through not one, but two ice storms. And ERCOT mandated outages that affected and still are affecting a number of our customers. So what that points to me is overarching everything is the need for resilience. And that can be accomplished via all sorts of work that can be done on the grid, what consumers have and will increasingly, I think, want more of, and what we as utilities can help enable on our end. So for me, and it's always been this way, looking at it through the lens of the consumer, Jennifer, I've always talked about sort of the 4 C's, which is what consumers want, and that's convenience, control, choice, and cost, in particular low cost. But the central theme that all of our customers have said, no matter what research tool we use, is they want reliability or, viewed differently, resilience. That is the #1 priority for our customers, and I suspect for many of the people that follow you.
Absolutely. You know, I think the conversation about resilience and where different energy services and products play in delivering that resilience to the grid and ultimately to consumers and commercial end users. One thing we talk about a lot in thinking about the connected home generally is how you bring these products into the home and how you raise consumer awareness about products and how they feed back into the larger energy market. And can you tell us a little bit about where you're seeing there be opportunities, maybe shifting or changing opportunities in the connected home as it relates specifically to energy resilience for consumers?
Certainly. I would say one of I think a great example of a success story for us, Jennifer, is what we've continued to do with two-way communicating thermostats with our customers. And I think, as I shared at a couple of conferences ago, we modified the energy code. The City of Austin modified its energy code such that new single-family residences and certain multifamily residents, new construction, will automatically have as a standard in our energy code two-way communicating thermostats. And we've recently taken the approach of extending to our existing multifamily customers, a program wherein we overcome the split incentive. So I know that's utility speak, right? You've got, in the case of Austin, 60% of our residential customers rent. So that's higher than what you would see in most communities. And those customers are renting, but the property owner is the one that would otherwise be the one to install an energy saving device, such as a smart thermostat or one that enables us to move load. And what we've done is to put together programs wherein we go in and do not only smart thermostats, but solar screens, insulation, basically weatherization in these properties. And that helps us break down that split incentive. And our contractors that we work with have said that those smart thermostats, which have been, pretty much increasing since I want to say roughly 2013, if memory serves, are the granite countertops in the multifamily space. That's what those property owners really like. That's an amenity. And so we've found that there is a really ripe, robust market for that type of amenity, for lack of a better word. And just the ability to have that and not necessarily be completely Wi-Fi enabled, but just the basics has been huge in helping us break down what has long been a barrier in getting multifamily property owners involved in our programs. Think of it this way. If in Austin you have a roughly 2% vacancy rate, that's a big hurdle to overcome. And we've done that, I think, very, very successfully. Now, a pandemic affected our ability to go in and do that for a while. So we did have to suspend our programs until it was safe for us to be able to go in and install those measures. And not just safe, it has to be safe for your customers, safe for your contractors, and safe for your employees.
Well, I know that we have greatly benefited from your experience and your insights, and I know that your customers and your employees have as well. So again, Debbie Kimberly with Austin Energy, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Hello, we're excited to welcome you to Smart Energy Summit. For decades, Parks Associates has studied the impact of technology on the consumer and utility markets. Smart Energy Summit Engaging the Consumer addresses the evolution of these markets, the impact of COVID-19 on energy management programs, and new opportunities to drive engagement in utility-sponsored programs. Last year, Smart Energy Summit was our last in-person event we were able to host in February in Austin, Texas. This year is a little different. Instead of hosting across 3 days, we will host our 12th annual Smart Energy Summit across the year. COVID-19, along with a growing focus on green energy solutions, has added new drivers to adoption of energy management products at home, as well as new interest in solar, electric vehicles, and other solutions that will help households save energy and become more self-sufficient. At Smart Energy Summit, we'll present our latest consumer research showing the impact of COVID-19 on attitudes and usage regarding energy at home, as well as the expansion and monetization of energy management and other energy-focused offerings through consumer engagement, new business models, unique partnerships, and innovative technologies. Virtual panels and networking sessions feature executive-level experts from multiple industries, including utilities, service providers, retailers, software providers, and manufacturers. We look forward to sharing more across the year with you. Join us for these upcoming sessions. February 23rd and 24th, Impact of COVID-19, Consumer Behavior and Energy Management, Home Services, Rethinking Utility Revenue Models, Energy Management Platforms, Accelerating Growth, DERMS, Solar, Storage, and Microgrids. On April 28th, MDUs, Leveraging Prop Tech for Smart Energy Management. August 4th, Next Stages of the EV Evolution. October 27th, Partnerships and Tech Advancements, and Shifting Customer Behavior, Energy Efficiency and Demand Response. Thank you for joining us at Smart Energy Summit. If you miss a live session, you can go back at any time to watch on demand. Go to Watch Replays and click on the session that you want to view. Have you created your own event agenda in SwapCard? Visit the Agenda and Watch Replay tabs to add sessions that interest you to your own event. You can go back to My Event to revisit any bookmarked sessions, sponsors, and items. We want to make sure that you're connecting with our industry-leading sponsors. You can interact with them by visiting the Booths and the Sponsor tab. You can also bookmark sponsors or add items to your event to view later. Sponsors have uploaded extra materials for attendees. Make sure to visit sponsors that interest you to chat with one of their team members or save documents for later. We have dedicated meeting slots set up for break times between sessions. Continue the discussion by requesting meetings from others in the SwapCard platform. Schedule a meeting with another attendee or a sponsor by visiting their page. The panelists and speakers will be addressing your questions live during the stream. During the stream, use the question tab to ask your questions early in the presentation. Go to the poll tab to answer polls that will be discussed during the live stream. If you need help navigating SwapCard, please reach out to our team by mentioning @Parks Associates in the chat box or by contacting one of our team members via our company page.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this track. It is titled Home Services, Rethinking Utility Revenue Models, where we want to examine some of the service opportunities that utilities are approaching and just some of the best ways to bring these services to market. I am Patrice Samuels, an analyst at Parks Associates. And before we get into the discussion here today, I want to take some time to thank our sponsors. They are Bidgley, Austin Energy, Osiaco, Flow, and American Water Homeowner Services. We really want to thank these sponsors for just helping to make this event a reality. We also want to thank the industry associations that support our event in many different ways year after year. All right, so let's kick it off with a brief introduction of the topic that we'll be talking about today. So when we talk about home services, we already know that there are a number of players from multiple industries that are already in this space. So we have mobile services, we have fixed broadband services, we have OTT and online video services. We also have professional security monitoring services, extended warranty services, and technical support services. Now, the home services space tend to be very competitive, of course, because it offers that opportunity for stable, recurring revenues. Now, what happens is we have these existing players that are already in the space and are always seeking to expand their offerings in the market to, drive that additional revenue from their customers. And then we're also facing, new players who are always trying to enter this market and to launch new services for consumers or homeowners. Now, utilities, of course, are always seeking ways to engage their customers beyond the traditional ratepayers that some use to reference their customers. And many have started to introduce new services that leverage technologies that are in consumers' homes. So one service which is being considered is HVAC monitoring services. And of course, these leverage the capabilities of smart thermostats in particular, many of which already have, built-in capabilities, to monitor HVAC systems and provide consumers with some level of alerts if anything is awry with these systems. Now, smart thermostat adoption is currently at approximately 11% of U.S. broadband households, and this has remained consistent for the past few years. Now, already this is providing sort of a base of consumers for utilities to work with. However, there is an opportunity to grow this market. And for a long time, we've seen where smart thermostats actually maintained a lead in the smart home market in terms of adoption. And this was driven in part by utilities integrating them into different programs. So we're seeing where there's a potential for utilities to step in and, boost the sales of smart thermostats, which have been stagnant for some time, just driving the adoption among U.S. households. Now, the ways in which utilities have traditionally engaged with smart thermostats include the energy efficiency programs that some of us have come to know, as well as demand response programs. Now, these programs have so far been more of sort of value-added opportunities, while helping, of course, to maintain the stability of the grid, rather than revenue generators for these utilities. But as utilities now seek services that they can actually monetize, HVAC monitoring services is one that's being explored. Now, these services, the intention behind some of these services is to add value beyond what thermostats do independently. So, whether it's around the clock monitoring for issues that can lead to bigger problems, or providing intelligent maintenance when and where it's needed, or repairing minor issues that may arise. Parks Associates research is showing that consumer willingness to pay for these services or that consumers are willing to pay for these services. We see where 57% of smart thermostat owners are willing to pay $10 per month for a service that monitors their HVAC system, notifies them of any issues that occur, and provides advice for needed maintenance. And we have 67% who are willing to pay $5 for that service. So the future prospects for these services are really good. Now, another thing that's also bringing that to light is the fact that 28% of US broadband households report an intention to purchase a smart thermostat in the next 6 months. And then we have 22% of consumers who own or intend to purchase a thermostat reporting that HVAC monitoring services is among the top 3 most important features for the purchase of that device. Now, energy management services, as I mentioned before, these have been around for some time, and there are several approaches that have been taken to incentivize consumers to save energy, and whether that is through information that is presented to them on their monthly bills or at some other point, incentives, rewards, home audits, several different strategies have been used. Now, there, of course, is an opportunity to leverage smart devices in these energy management services. So services can be built around smart thermostats, the capabilities that we mentioned before. Now, already we have 26% of smart thermostat owners and purchase intenders reporting that adjusting the device, or a device that can be adjusted to save money when electricity rates are high, is among the most important features of the device. And then we have 24% reporting that being able to adjust to save money based on how their home reacts to weather is among the most important features. So we know that these features are important to consumers. The question then becomes, are they willing to pay for it? Now, our research is showing that 56% of consumers, 56% of smart thermostat owners and purchase intenders, are willing to pay $10 per month for a service that remotely monitors electricity consumption patterns and makes suggestions to reduce overall energy consumption. Now, beyond HVAC systems, there is a bigger opportunity to help consumers to save money. And this is through using other smart home devices and home automation. Now, smart devices make it possible to automate some energy savings actions. So we know that, smart thermostats can save money based on a number of factors that we talked about earlier. And smart lights can be pre-programmed to shut off automatically at certain times. Smart appliances, such as smart refrigerators, are also being built with energy-saving capabilities. And we're finding that these capabilities are actually among the most appealing value proposition for these appliances. So features like an away mode, which reduces the energy used by the appliance when consumers are away from home, for an extended period, that is, or alerts when the refrigerator door is left open. Features like those we're finding are really appealing to consumers who have purchased or are intended to purchase a smart refrigerator. Smart plugs, not only are these increasingly being built with energy monitoring capabilities, they can also be used to automate, traditional, non-smart devices to help them or help consumers save energy with those products. Now, automating these actions decreases the level of effort involved in saving energy and increases the reliability of and compliance with energy savings actions. Another thing is that automation includes a number of devices being sort of coordinated to save energy. So the potential there for an increasing savings definitely increases, and the value to the consumer increases in that process. Warranty and support. This could also be an extension of HVAC monitoring services. So consumers are aware that their HVAC systems account for nearly half of their home's energy, and any issues with these systems can lead to even greater energy consumption or lead to an all-out failure, really. So an energy provider monitoring these systems can be a really good fit. Now, this, of course, can be extended to other products throughout the home. And, another factor is as more utilities set up utility marketplaces and try to enter the market for smart home devices, offering warranty and support is an avenue to not only gain some market advantage, but also to expand the market. So we're seeing here on this chart where you have that red box highlighted there where it's saying, the research is showing that 7% of consumers who don't already own or intend to purchase a smart device would purchase one if offered a warranty for at least 5 years. Home security, that's another space that's currently being explored by energy providers. And we know that there's already really strong competition in that space, from the traditional security providers who have been in the space for a long time to DIY players that are now entering the market. But there's still some opportunity here. And what we're seeing is that 14% of US broadband households do report intention to acquire a security system in the next 12 months, and 21% of security system intenders want a system that they can get professionally monitored when needed. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second to see if there were any questions before we get into our visionary presentation. Do we have any questions? How long has the plan to purchase in the next 12 months stat been? Greater than or actually purchased percentage? Okay, so my interpretation of this question is we want to know how long was this stat taken, and how close is it really to the actual percentage that actually purchase a product. So I'm not sure. I mentioned several different purchase intentions, so I'm not actually sure which one we're referring to. If we're talking about the smart thermostats, that was taken in Q4 of last year, 2020. So the 12 months would extend out to Q4 of this year, 2021. And in terms of how close we're seeing the purchase data linking up to actual purchases, so it really varies, and that's one of the reasons. Because initially we've done a lot of work in purchase intentions within that 12-month time frame, and we've seen where many times there's a huge gap between those purchase intentions and what consumers actually end up purchasing, sometimes down to the 50% mark. So we've really tried to tighten them up. And a lot of our research now, we've looked at both the purchase intentions over the next 12 months and purchase intentions over the next 6 months, thinking that, that 6-month period will really capture those who are serious and actually do intend to purchase a product. Now that approach is kind of new, somewhat new. So we'll definitely be observing more carefully to see if those purchase intentions over the next 6 months sort of jive more closely to actual purchase data than the purchase intentions over the next 12 months. So I hope that helps. But the bottom line is that it really varies widely from year to year. All right, I think we do have to move into our visionary presentation right now. And I would like to introduce our visionary speaker, who is Arsham Hatambiki, and he is from Universal Electronics Incorporated. And Arsham will be talking a little bit about their new products and services and sort of their approach to energy management with those products and services. So Arsham, when you're ready, you can start your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Patrice. Thank you for having me. Okay, so let's see if I can actually get this up. Okay. So helpful by design, that's really how we started thinking about the new generation of products. And we just started unveiling the first couple beginning of this year in our technology summit. And we'll have more services and more products to discuss later in the year. But I'd like to maybe start by explaining who we are. Universal Electronics may not be known, especially in the utility domain. We are the company behind the scenes, a public company for many years, and we've really tasked ourselves with creating a smarter life. And our starting point in every journey is with the user. So as long as you perfect the user experience, then you can layer additional services, value add offerings around it. But if the initial offering doesn't really deliver that expectation, deliver on the expectations of the users, you'll definitely not be able to evolve it and expand it into revenue generating opportunities. Our markets overall, we segment our markets into entertainment and smart home. Across entertainment, we are present in retail, consumer electronics, and video service providers. That's really where the company started originally. And in the smart home domain, we're present in pro security, climate control, appliances, and hospitality. And a range of products that feed these different markets around home entertainment, from controllers all the way to accessories and mounts and antennas. In connected home, we have controlling devices, hubs, thermostat, sensors, and around software services that kind of extends across both boundaries. We have an interoperability as a service offering through our QuickSet Cloud, which is integrated inside millions and millions of devices today already. Our digital assistant, a white label digital assistant to simplify user interaction, and finally a complete framework for technical support of connected devices, what we name as virtual agent on and off device. Connectivity solutions, so we both manufacture finished products as well as software and services that integrate into existing products, or connectivity modules, or you can imagine intelligence on the board that you can basically integrate inside central units such as HVAC devices, appliances, and so forth. Now, zooming in on the connected home segment, our primary goal here is to help brands deliver managed services better and directly to the end users. With all the complexities in the home, with the fragmentation in the home ecosystems, and new use cases, and a range of new innovative connected home devices, some of them are basically a passing blip in the market, and some of them actually really scale. We try to bring interoperability with the devices that you roll out through a combination of software and hardware devices, and we enable sensing and control capabilities. And I'll kind of get into the specifics around energy management here. Now, thankfully, we always have Parks to go back and kind of show us the pain points in the market. Market for a long time has shown that there's help needed in introducing new connected home devices and services. There are issues around setup, there are issues around basic connectivity, interoperability, and interoperability is one of the biggest pain points, since it's not static, it's not a one-time onboarding process, it's an ongoing maintenance of how you cooperate with other devices in the home, how you benefit from other devices being introduced in the home. And finally, basic feature and service discovery on existing devices. A lot of smart home devices are introduced and users adopt them, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're fully versed on all the capabilities of the devices. So half of the capabilities that you invest on might not even be adopted, even though the device is present in the home. To us, the opportunity of a connected product is the relationship. It evolves from a mechanical device, if you will, to an ongoing promise and relationship with the end user. It enables rapid innovation if you can maintain that relationship, if you can digitally transform the user relationship and then move it across screens in and out of the home, then it opens up new avenues for monetization service offering. The support framework should be completely redone. It's if you intend to scale a service, the support needs to be built in from day zero as part of the original design, not as an afterthought when you introduce a device. Simpler onboarding, interoperability on an ongoing basis with the third-party devices, ecosystems, platforms in the homes, and finally, the framework to allow monitoring, prediction, and hopefully some sort of fulfillment for the fixes that may be needed in smart home. Now, there are two ways that we can think about the market, and typically, by mistake, you might consider them mutually exclusive, but we actually see them as very complementary. There are generalists and specialists in the market. Generalists are your traditional, the new voice assistants, the smart home platforms, generalized smart home platforms. They're really good at scaling and marketing to enable user adoption at scale. Now, the specialists, they're technology and use case experts. When you look at HVAC OEMs with billions of dollars in investment in better technologies, ductless and ducted solutions, if you look at it from a global perspective, the US framework is quite different than the global framework if you want to enable climate control and energy consumption optimization. Property management, these are, you can consider MDUs, hospitalities. These are property management frameworks that really have to optimize for a complete view of the building. And they have nuances that traditional generalists may not even be able to address today. Now, utility service providers, and when I say service providers, it's somewhat open-ended. Security service providers are evolving into whole home service provider. They're trying to complement, as Patrice mentioned, complement their offerings in pro security with digital security, with energy management, comfort, and some lifestyle use cases. So there is a lot of synergy and a lot of knowledge, expertise in this domain that if given the opportunity, they can actually deliver and optimize the service. If you consider retail smart thermostats as an attempt to optimize the energy efficiency and climate control of the home after the fact, if you integrate the capabilities either with the central HVAC or with a property management system or with a whole home energy or security service provider, then all of a sudden you can unlock new opportunities that were not possible before. Now, we look at a thermostat really as a dashboard now that also does climate control. It is a smart display in the home. It's connected. It can communicate with other devices, and it can be a service offering platform. Now, to be able to achieve that, simplicity is step number one. A simple view so that you can demystify the concept of pattern recognitions and learning thermostats. And you need to simplify what that all means for the end user, how that delivers comfort, how that saves them energy. That needs to be explained in simple terms. The device does need to be ambient aware. So if this is a smart dashboard into your climate control and additional service offering, it does need to be aware of its environment, from your presence to environmental factors such as air quality metrics, different types of sensors. And finally, I don't know, if you end up in a hotel, if it's the right time of the day, maybe it's a good time if you see somebody's looking at the screen to let them know they can go downstairs and grab a drink. Now, we look at this platform as as the starting point for a digital relationship with the end user. Now, on device, you need to be able to deliver assistance, and the same assistant then can be scaled across all properties so that all the capabilities of the device can be accessed on and off the device. Interoperability then starts unlocking a range of new opportunities. Interoperability of a device like this with shades, smart vents, plugs. It can all of a sudden, and additional occupancy sensors across the home, it can actually enable a better balance between both comfort, energy usage, dependent on the technology that's available in the ducted or ductless systems. So we look at interoperability as critical. Interoperability obviously needs to also improve the general lifestyle. If somebody wants to introduce new assistants in the home, you need to be interoperable with those, but you can't be dependent. Your service offering cannot be dependent or bounded by what is available through a generalist. If you are to deliver standalone services, you do need to be able to guarantee quality of service on an ongoing basis. And we do look at every device in the home at the end of the day as a quote-unquote hub. In the long term, the home will not be formed as a pyramid with a single point of failure. In the long term, the most resilient home that's smart, even if one service goes away, is a home that all devices can cooperate and communicate together. Finally, that starts checking off all the boxes that you'll need to start delivering value-added services that can actually be monetizable services. That can range anything from predictive maintenance to credit-based energy optimization programs, so that you can actually have a direct line of communication with the user, be able to communicate the value, and then prove that you've actually delivered on the original promise. And at the end of the day, these are all the building blocks that are going to be necessary to change the relationship, take a utility relationship from the company that I only sign a check to once a month to a company that has an ongoing relationship with me, and I trust them to help me manage my home better, easier, on an ongoing basis. And back to you, Patrice. I cannot hear you.
Okay, seems like my microphone was on mute. I apologize, and thank you for that, Arsham.
Sure.
So I was letting the audience know that we do still have a few minutes, so they can go ahead and submit their questions in that section that says live discussions. There is a questions tab right there, and that's where you can submit your questions for Arsham. But before we get those questions, there's something I was really curious about myself. So I couldn't help but noticing a huge focus on just user experience overall. You even talk about, building support in from, day zero, when, from product is an idea until, it gets into the consumer's hands.
Sure.
I'm just curious to find out, because I talk about that a lot too. And I see a lot of the data on consumer experiences with smart home products. I see the data on returns from just poor setup and install experiences and poor experiences overall. So I was just curious if that decision to focus there, was it based on sort of, company philosophy? Was it sort of lessons learned from previous experiences in the market, or from some other product experience in the market? What kind of drove that focus on user experience?
I would love to be able to say we're just geniuses and we came up with that. But it is a hard-learned lesson throughout the years. We do play on multiple segments. And if you look at our entertainment business, for example, which is, it's at scale. It's one of those technologies that you cannot go to a home and really not find it there. So our our business throughout the years there has evolved to refine user experience from the first introduction into a product to an ongoing basis. So we built up our software capabilities primarily to be able to address that throughout the years. And our HVAC business throughout the years has been primarily focused on interoperability with different types of central HVAC or central HVAC, ducted, ductless, different variations on a global platform. Now, in the new generation of the products, we try to take the learnings from both businesses and see how we were able to scale the entertainment side and bring some of those learnings to the connected home devices, and start from how do you make life easier from the first time that they open up the box to 5 years down the line when their home quite possibly is going to be very different than what it was when they initially installed the device. So putting that as the first foundation of the product, then we started building around it.
You know, that brings me to another question, because you just talked about, you know, from the moment they open the product to, you know, when they're that ongoing use, who knows how long that is, and I'm sure it varies for different products. You know, some might be 2 years, some might be 10, right? So another thing you tended to focus on was interoperability and the importance of making sure that the products that you put out there can work with other products that are in the consumer's home seamlessly, and also be integrated into the services that they're using. But of course, those things are constantly changing throughout that duration that the consumer has that product. That environment that you're trying to be interoperable with is going to change. So is there a unique approach to ensuring that ongoing interoperability as products change?
There is. As part of our QuickSet Cloud infrastructure, we actually have an interoperability as a service. In a white label fashion, on an ongoing basis, we actually update and maintain interoperability with new devices. As they change, we expand the capabilities, and we build the framework in a way that no device will be left behind. So we already do an exercise that on the latest generations of smart TVs from major brands right, last year. So it's been very positive, and it actually, we look at it as table stakes to be able to innovate in a home framework against a generalist approach. So if you were to basically forego any sort of direct interoperability between the brands and always limit yourself to going through a third party, then your hands will basically be tied in doing home scale innovation. Anything that needs to innovate in the home, if you want to cool the home in Arizona, which is, you know, where our headquarters is now, you have to drop the shades. Doesn't matter what you do with the central HVAC. If you don't drop the shades, the home will never cool off. So these basic factors are going to differentiate brands on the services that they can really deliver at the end of the day.
Nice, thank you. And one of my favorite parts of that was interoperability as a service. Interesting one. All right, let's see what other questions there are. So can Arsham share more about the role of the integrator? So is that your team? I'm not sure.
So I'll make a couple of assumptions of what that means. As far as the interoperability is concerned, we actually do a white glove SLA-based integration with all the different platforms. So that we take on the hardest parts of integration onto ourselves. Now, we are not a demand response platform, so we provide cloud-based integration for backend platforms such as that. We are not a property management system. And we do integration with property management systems when we go into hospitality domain, as an example. And we provide tools for simple setup, for installers and solution integrators in non-residential applications, for example. I hope that explains.
I hope so too. All right, here's another one. Again, talking about integration and integrated systems. Okay, do consumers really care about an integrated system, or can they buy with Wi-Fi? Can they buy with individual Wi-Fi smart devices that solves individual use cases, which may explain the whole home automation has not taken off? And if you need me to try to read that again, I will. The baseline or the overarching question, I think, is it would explain why whole home automation has not taken off. So do consumers really care about integrated systems, or can they buy individual Wi-Fi smart devices that solve individual use cases?
Fair enough.
Explain why whole home systems have not taken off.
I don't think really consumers care about all the technical terms that we may or may not use in talking about generalists and specialists and integrated systems or non-integrated systems. At the end of the day, they look for the experience. Now, if a brand wants to deliver an experience, quite often you'll find yourself bounded. If the only piece, think in terms of an HVAC OEM. If the only piece that you do control, for example, is the technology in the central unit, you do not control the smart vents, shades, you do not control the interface to the user, the actual thermostat that goes on the wall, then much will not be possible. So if the best example, again, going back to our starting point, is think about the entertainment industry. Entertainment industry for a while had a lot of innovation happening in the aftermarket remote control business. So smart remote control companies came about with really, really great user experiences, but they were detached from the actual entertainment experience on the big screen. Now that completely changed when the entertainment systems became smart themselves, became voice enabled, and now most of them are also smart home dashboards as well. So the boundaries between smart home and entertainment started fading. So a lot of interesting use cases have come about as soon as that happened. The aftermarket business kind of went away just because the experience that you get in a fully integrated system is always better. You can always solve the problems from within the system much better as if you were on the outside.
All right. I hope this one reads better. Okay, can any maker of smart home devices use this pipe for two-way communication?
So, technically it's possible. For obvious privacy security reasons, it will not be a highway, obviously. It would need to be based on valid commercial relationships between the brands to allow access. Sometimes access to private data such as occupancy or air quality sensor metrics within a home. So when you think about whether it's possible, most definitely it's possible.
Okay. Another one popping up now. Can you share your thoughts on the trend of consumer usage and smart home installation of the market leader smart thermostats? So just asking of your thoughts on consumer usage trends of smart thermostats.
The market leader in smart thermostats, I would assume they're referring to Nest.
Etc.
Okay. Fantastic innovation. They looked at a device that was overlooked a critical device in the home that was overlooked, and they innovated, both in terms of user experience as well as then the capabilities in the long run. Now, to take it to the next step, however, much needs to change. As I mentioned, fixing the problem from the outside is typically not easy, and there's not enough focus either. And just imagine a future that every device that enters your home will be smart. At that point, you probably won't even call it smart. You'll just call it expected. So as long as any device that comes into your home has that capability, as part of every new HVAC installation, you get this new system. Every utility company can promote their own services within their own footprint. I think the dynamics in the market can actually considerably change.
Okay. Wonderful, thanks. Now, I want to go back to one of the things that you mentioned earlier in your presentation that really just, kind of sat well with me as someone who's looked into that technical support space, just like observing needs and, just issues consumers are having. So back to day zero support and building that into products from the very beginning. I'm just trying to get your thoughts on what are some of the, as we think about it and as other brands think about it, what should we be thinking about at day zero? What are some of the approaches to building in, support or considering support at day zero? What needs to be done?
Ensure a digital first support experience. Anything else has proven to be problematic to scale. And no user really likes to sit on the phone for 5 minutes, even if they have to. So they may even just forego a feature and just live with the pain for a while, but they will not be your promoter in the long run. A digital first on-device support is where you start and extend it to other properties. Once you have them leave the device and have to look for help elsewhere, you effectively are competing with general web searches, with different forums that you cannot really guide them through your own proven steps. So that's really where you start as far as the touch point, and don't really think about support as a cost basis. Actually, think about support as what can be the baseline for your value add services after the fact. It can, if done right, actually end up generating revenue and not be a cost basis.
Yep, I agree. And I mean, that's so important because, as I mentioned, even if you build everything in that you're conscious of, from day zero, there's still issues that might arise. So having that support right there and easily accessible, I think, is really going to be critical going forward. But that will be the last comment. So thank you so much for your time. I do invite you to stick around for a networking session later on. And our interactive panel discussion as well. So you were on that as well. And we will be transitioning now into our executive Q&A, and that will be led by Elizabeth Parks of Parks Associates, and she will be joined by Felicity Mormon of Stratus and RealPage. So let's just give it a few seconds to transition over to those two. Thank you.
So welcome back, and thank you, Patrice and Arsham, for that interesting conversation about home services, and particularly the role that thermostats can now play with demand response and really the greater picture of services at home with consumers. So I'm very excited today to have Felicity Moorman join us. We're going to take a minute to continue talking about the role of home services and specifically looking at energy management at the platforms connecting all of these things. We do have another session in April that's specifically focused on the MDU market, but we're excited to have Felicity joining us today to bring her perspective. If you don't know Felicity, I would suggest you meet her someday. She is really an awesome entrepreneur. She's got over 25 years of experience. She is also an attorney, and I know she's a mom too. Currently, she's the CEO and co-founder of Stratus. And in August, RealPage announced the acquisition of Stratus IoT. And so really focused in on the platform play and the integration of different devices, providing services to MDUs and other types of buildings like, student housing and that sort of thing. So Felicity, thank you so much for lending your time today to join us, and look forward to hearing a little bit more. Maybe we can just start off and let you do a quick introduction of your role and what you're currently working on.
Well, Elizabeth, with an intro like that, I'm just going to invite you everywhere I go. Thank you so much. That was by far the kindest, nicest introduction I've ever had. So yes, Felicity Moorman. Some of you will know me from Boologics, where I joined Ryan Bookert in working the global test house, but also co-development of devices in the IoT space, Z-Wave, Zigbee, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, now LoRa. And yes, more recently, Stratus, who at 6 years old was purchased by RealPage, the largest provider of software in multifamily. We have shifted to the vision of the founder of RealPage in a very exciting way, not only expanding our offering in retrofit capabilities for access and smart apartments, where we had 400,000 units installed at the point of acquisition, but now also moving into a sustainability suite that spans a very holistic approach to multifamily buildings, as far as I can tell, for the first time in this industry. So this sustainability suite, Smart Sustain, includes waste management, energy management, and water management, all of which are cohesive and collaborative between residents and the owners and investors, operators of those buildings. And it was really neat to hear Debbie say that the utilities are working on this disparate interest issue, because that's exactly what we're working on in order to eliminate the obstacles for adoption.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Can you maybe take us back to 2014 and share a little bit about the start and how this has progressed to the acquisition point that you have with RealPage? And congratulations again on that. That's
yeah, thank you so much. It's a good home. It's a good home for us. Stratus.
Just right. They're local, so that's great.
Right. So I'll be down there as soon as I can be. We actually started, and I think those who've known me since Boologics days know this, but we started as Stratus EMS, which was Stratus, the strategic implementation and support of energy management systems. And our original goals were all around sustainability. And the first goal was collaborative control of smart thermostats to address that disparate interest, that split interest between residents and owners. And we were working in retrofit, so much older buildings than the new developments that we have the privilege to be included on today. And it was an eye-opener. One of the things that Debbie talked about was the obstacles for owners and operators. And one of those obstacles is in that anything that impacts the net operating income of a building negatively also negatively impacts the value of that building. And so one of the things we learned right away is that we have to provide more value than we cost. And it's non-negotiable. You can't decrease the value of a building with technology, which seems obvious, but for the value and the appraisal of the building, it really was a lesson in a new industry for people who'd spent most of our time in home automation. And so Strata CMS began evolving very rapidly with the initial inclusion of our partners at Schlage, who had a smart door lock for multifamily, but not a software platform at the time. And from there, it just took off. Obviously, when you have a smart door lock and you have a smart thermostat, intuitively, you create a smart apartment. And so we found that that smart apartment really is a Trojan horse for the sustainability that is part of our mission.
Well, that's great. And certainly with your solution, you are addressing the experience of both the consumer as well as the building, which are two really very, very different things. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about the value proposition and the selling points for the building side. Certainly there's some obvious ones with operational efficiencies. At the same time, cost, as you noted, is there as well. And so maybe highlight a little bit about both of those things for us.
Yeah, so we definitely have to keep costs tight. And one of the reasons that we are multi-protocol oriented is so that we can leverage the cost efficacy of our manufacturing partners across multiple protocols. But we did note that Z-Wave, having such a massive footprint in home automation, was the easiest product to iterate to enable in multifamily. So we've had a lot of success with a plethora of Z-Wave products in the space, which is handy because when you need 300 units of a building at a time, you sometimes have to scramble a little bit, especially with supply chain issues due to the pandemic. So that's been additional lessons in how to operate. But cost is really at the forefront, especially of a retrofit. We have a little more leeway in new development as far as budgets go, but it's very important that not only is the capital expenditure of the building reasonable for the return, but also that the operating expenses, which impact that net operating income, are frankly nominal. They have to be less than what the building is capable of earning from that platform that you enable. So the operating efficiencies for us are where we focus to enable that reduction of cost for the building, as opposed to an additional expense for the building. Now that's everything from smart thermostats. Energy is huge. One of the ways that we impact our building owners and operators positively is by managing vacant units with a building-wide button. So this is a scene for those who are familiar with home automation, but it's a building-wide scene so that all vacant units are perpetually set back without going unit by unit. Same thing for shade control. When we're able, shades obviously a little more expensive, but when we're able to include them, we can do active daylighting. And that's something that multifamily has rarely had an automation around. Leak sensing, obviously, incredibly important. When we talk about energy, sometimes we only think about electricity as consumption. But the truth is that all of the efficiencies that reduce energy usage overall are really important to multifamily. And that includes mitigating loss in the event of water damage, the energy that goes into actually getting clean water to our units and to our buildings, 30% of that is lost. And the cost is profound when you think about our entire ecosystem and not just that moment at the building. So we really do that holistic approach for our building owners and operators. Now, residents, we're finding, are enjoying the smart home. It's really incredible to understand that this was missing in this space and that there was demand and that there was desire, and people come in and use a sidewalk to sofa key on a mobile application, but that's just the, literal foot in the door, if you will, to everything else that we're providing on that mobile app that a smartphone can provide from an energy management standpoint. So that's everything from demand response capabilities, which we're launching with Excel Energy. We're working with Austin Energy on a variety of programs. We're working with Google Nest partners to enable their thermostats where there are subsidies. So across the country, this is kind of finally turning on, if you will. And for the MDU market, smart home, I really believe utilities have tried for a very long time to enable smart thermostats, smart energy reduction, demand response capabilities. But when you can do it 300 units in a building at a time, it has a pretty significant impact. And where proud isn't quite enough. This team has been working on this for years.
Well, sure, and we're certainly seeing a lot of interest in the MDU space in terms of technology procurement, broadband services, always on, and really the various amenities that that come with connectivity. So I want to get back to interoperability in a minute, but if we can focus a little bit more in on the consumer experience and actually the amenities side. So you alluded to some of that earlier with your comments, but what are the things that are really standing out for consumers in the MDU space? I mean, what are the things that, you know, it used to maybe be a gym or somebody even opening the door for you. I mean, there's a lot of things that MDUs can provide. And so what are some of the new things that you all are seeing that are helping drive future products?
Yep, so Debbie was absolutely right in her repeating what new development partners are saying in construction. And that really is that we still have a hero product in the space. And it's nice to see that people recognize the thermostat on the wall. There's some bang for its buck right there. We did a property in Denver. And we did, I'm going to name drop some of our partners, forgive me, but it's important to understand that while there's a lot for Class A++, we can also match the retrofit market. This was Class A+. This is maybe the sexiest property I've ever been on, and I can't live there. But this is a beautiful property. They used Google Nest with fleet management so that everything was automated. In other words, you don't have to enroll, you don't have app fatigue by having multiple different applications. It's just one application. Same thing with Lutron. Lutron is enabled in our app as well. We had leak sensors, we had door locks. It is the sidewalk to sofa door lock play. So that means that you don't have any keys, you don't have any fobs, unless you are tech hesitant, which I understand. I have a dad. And so for that reason, that holistic package with some certifiable sustained marketing language created an opportunity for that building to sign 90 leases pre-occupancy in 4 weeks. And the rent premium on that building was about 20%. So consumers are responding to this technology. And those are really the big ones. The hero products, people recognize a product. They say, oh, I didn't know I could get that in an apartment. And that's valuable. That's a true value in recruiting and retaining your residents. I will say, and we know this from the home automation space, in multifamily, you create a sticky environment that is effective and it works and your residents love it. And you have a sticky apartment, which sounds gross, but the truth is your residents don't want to leave when they set up all of their scenes and they use all of the amenities and they know when somebody's in the gym and when it's safe to go to the gym. They get notices and alerts. They have community rewards programs, and they have the always-on Wi-Fi. When you can create a sticky building. Again, that's not going to. I don't know if that's ever going to fly, Elizabeth. So, but those of us in the space who've been here for a while know that the stickiness of home automation means that once people engage these devices and tell them what to do in a mobile application and have scenes and have expectations to use this tech, they don't go away from it easily. It really takes a lot. And we see that, unfortunately, when any hub goes away, there's an outcry because people had kind of created a home with that hub. So we're seeing that in multifamily as well. Consumers are responding, and there's not a device that doesn't get positive attention.
Well, sure, and our research certainly supports that. As noted earlier, I think by Jennifer Patrice, smart home device owners are the ones who are going out and buying more. So, as our consumer and industry experts note, it really is about the experience, and I think that's one reason why it's taken so long. And I know how long it's been, decades, in fact, of technology being built on top of technology to get where we are now. But let's maybe look at interoperability, because that goes in nicely with this conversation. So give me your take on interoperability. I heard you say, Z-Wave and Zigbee and LoRa. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I will share that multifamily is an enterprise operation. I just can't recommend jumping into the space without a multi-protocol platform because of the need to leverage the variety of devices from an operating efficiency perspective, from a cost perspective, from an enablement perspective. I am a tremendous advocate for the mesh network partners that we work with. Both Z-Wave and Zigbee are profoundly good at evolving, and they are both just meeting expectations, exceeding expectations. But on a door lock, if we can't afford to network a building because it's not in the budget, we use a Bluetooth BTLE. It's a great door lock. Works with this. There's moments where there's not a budget for something that we would love to do. Same thing with Wi-Fi. We're using the Wi-Fi in our Google Nest Fleet Management program because that's the most cost-effective way right now to enable that thermostat. But we're using Z-Wave light switches with that, and I just mentioned we have a Lutron platform as well enabled. So all of those are enabled both on our controller and in the cloud, so that no matter where they need to talk, it appears seamless to your resident. And I think somebody mentioned this in the question. Is it important to consumers to have all of this on one, or can you just use everything Wi-Fi? And not obviously, but perhaps this wasn't specifically targeted as a question to multifamily, but in multifamily, the answer is yes. Because when I rented an apartment 3 years ago, I had a key fob for the gate, I had a mobile credential for the front door, I had a smart card for my gym, and then I had an additional hard key for the unit. And that's the first place we went sidewalk to sofa. I was like, this is 4 different credentials for the same building. And so in multifamily, property owners and operators cannot possibly continue to manage that level of challenge. So for me, multi-protocol is huge. And there's a lot of discussion about 5G and a lot of discussion about Wi-Fi 6, and I love them both. But 5G is hard inside of the build infrastructure because it's a higher frequency. It has lower capability of getting through, well, frankly, us, bodies even, 70% water. That's tough to get through for that high of a frequency. Imagine what concrete and windows are going to do to 5G. So that's going to be an evolving process. In the meantime, we have protocols like LoRa that speak 200 miles open air. I mean, really, you're not going to stream Netflix on that. But if you need a temperature reading or if you need a leak alert, you're good. And there's literally no wires. So it's a completely different wireless. And when you can bridge that with a technology like Z-Wave, that enables much more cost-effective building infrastructure. So this is enterprise. This is at scale. It's a different animal than home automation in a single family home where an individual gets to make choices. Even if that choice is a platform provider, this is a beast. The learning over the last 6, now almost 7 years, it's been incredible. It's a great ride, and I'm fortunate to have a lot of partners in the space who've taken the ride with me, and hopefully they're all recovering too.
Well, that's great. There's so many questions I want to ask you. I'm gonna make sure our audience knows that they can put questions in the Q&A in the chat. But let me let me give you a question here about CHIP. And I know you're not a representative necessarily of CHIP. And so I just want to see if we can get your perspective. I know you referenced that multi-protocol, multi-communications protocol are of critical importance, but what do you think that the CHIP initiative is going to bring to the table?
So you've got some big names there, and that's good for getting attention. I certainly leverage my partnerships with Amazon and Google to enable those who are in the space to understand what I do better. And from a consumer perspective, I always hesitate to talk about the chips because the recognition for consumers creates confusion. I once the lack of recognition, excuse me. I once asked, I won't say which alliance, but I once asked if perhaps we could just create those garanimals, and a panda goes with a panda and a giraffe goes with a giraffe. And they weren't amused in the least. But I think, if we're not careful, we create another situation where we have more challenges and not fewer. We need some contraction and some collaboration in the marketplace so that what I'm doing on an enterprise hub is done on a chip. And I think that is happening in the marketplace, and I think it will continue to, but I'm hesitant. There's an XKCD cartoon where a guy and a gal are sitting there talking, and they're like, oh my gosh, 12 standards, this, protocol that, protocol this. Why don't we just combine them all and have one? And then 2 years later, it's like, oh my gosh, 15 standards. Why don't we just combine this, and this? So, I'm a healthy skeptic, and I will remain so. And if we can get the consumer interested in the technology, I think we have a win, no matter who it is. But my expectation is that the consumer doesn't want to know. They don't really care if this is Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, as long as it's doing what it's supposed to. So for those of us who manufacture and create products, again, the more collaboration, contraction we get in the marketplace around actual chipsets, the less expensive it is, the more we can take to consumers that do that work.
Well, and certainly a lot of huge players there helping drive that initiative. And so, we expect to see some movement there, and hopefully it's very positive ultimately for the consumer, but that will play back to the industry as well and the industry's success. But I think you're right. Consumers just want this stuff to work. And actually, if it doesn't, then they don't buy it. And we certainly have data that backs that up. Let me ask you a question from our audience here. Can you share a little bit about interest, usage, and needs within the various MDU segments like student housing and senior communities?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. Who is that? Just give that person a little bump for me. Okay, so this is really important. I didn't understand necessarily the differences, obviously, when I got into the market. So let's take conventional is what I'm typically talking about. And I'm talking about either new development or retrofit, but there are significant differences in the application of the technology. In new dev, we're going in before drywall. It's awesome, right? I mean, you have a lot of people to wrangle, but it's still awesome. In retrofit, these are occupied. Somebody lives there. You're going into someone's home 300 times in hopefully a very short period of time. So new development and retrofit in the conventional market are two different animals all by themselves. Both of those are actively seeking kind of a full smart home, smart building from the ground up play. Student housing, we see the access because twice a year you have 2 turns of all of your residents, if you will. And so in student housing, you see a rapid return on investment for your electronic access, which is incredible. It's a great opportunity. You also see a lot of mass metered properties still, especially off-campus housing. And so a lot of times that owner or operator is paying for the energy. So if you can create energy reductions through opt-ins, you have a real return on investment there too. Now, that said, I don't see a lot of lighting in student housing unless it's one of those infinity pool places, and trust me, they exist. For senior developments, you would be amazed. So senior developments are actively adopting this technology, number one, for energy efficiencies, which also are cost effective for people on limited income. So we're seeing energy adopted typically first. Bluetooth door locks, sometimes not so much. almost never PIN codes because they're small and take some pretty tremendous dexterity. Also, there's ADA compliance issues that we have to be aware of because we're going enterprise. And that's for all multifamily. ADA compliance and fire ratings. You can't just slap a door lock on a door. And then let's see, affordable. Really excited about affordable, not technically energy, but because waste takes energy to manage. Waste management and affordable is a tremendous opportunity for return on investment. Energy is actively being engaged by some of the biggest leaders in affordable, both for the operator and for the residents. Not seeing the sexy door locks adopted there in affordable yet, hoping we get some economies of scale as we continue to evolve this marketplace. But affordable is getting a lot of the benefits of this, and that is exciting to me. That's mission based. So I think I hit all the markets. Oh, short-term rentals, huge, and extended stays. So again, someplace where you can go and your Wi-Fi is already connected. You can get all the way through a building to a building, etc., without an assist, because our leasing agents can't become concierge agents. That's not their job. And then also, because the turn there is different, those energy efficiencies can be a lot more important. That's all of them.
Well, and that's great. And it certainly underscores the role of connectivity and broadband. And I know we talked to a lot of the major tier 1 and some of the smaller service providers about this issue of always on and managed services, and really the very important role that plays with the experience. So, that is all the time we have. These conversations go by so quickly, but Felicity, we really appreciate your insights. I'd love to see you in Dallas whenever you get down here. We would happily welcome you to our offices and appreciate your insights today. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a quick break and we will be right back with our interactive panel. So thanks for joining us today, and be sure to enter any questions you have in the chat or the Q&A on the SwapCard platform. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are about to move into the panel discussion section of the track. We have a good mix of panelists, so we're going to go ahead and start with some introductions, and then we're going to sort of get into a little bit of a discussion, and then after that, we're going to make some time, about 15 minutes towards the end, for some questions from the audience. So the title of the discussion is following the title of the track, and it's Beyond Energy, Rethinking Utility Revenue Models. Did I get that right? So with that said, let's go ahead and get into some introductions, and we're going to kick it off with Kent Dixon from Unomi. Go ahead, Ken.
Hi. Did you have an intro slide?
Yes, we're going to pull it up right now.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Hi, yeah, I'm Ken Tixon. I'm co-founder of Unomi, general manager of the business unit. We're now part of the Allegion family of brands. We came on board with Allegion just at the beginning of the year. But Unomi is a simple smart home integration platform. We make a platform that makes it easy for innovators to build apps and solutions for the smart home that consumers are going to love. Some of those tend to be energy management oriented. Some of them tend to be safety and security oriented. Some of them tend to be aging in place, et cetera, et cetera. It's a horizontal platform that kind of brings all the devices together into one common API for the home.
All right, thank you, Ken. And now we will move to Rob. Rob is with American Water Homeowner Services. Take it away, Rob.
Wonderful, thank you. And if you could pull up my slide as well, Patrice.
Sure, there you go.
Right. Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. So my name is Rob Gilpin. I am the Director of Business Development on our utility side. So I work specifically with electric and gas utilities. What makes us unique is that we are a division of American Water, the largest water wastewater utility in the U.S., providing services for about 120 plus years. So utilities are very much in our DNA, and we fight the same issues and challenges that each of you utilities that are joining us today fight as well. Our division, American Water Homeowner Services, provides a variety of value-add services to you, the utility, that you in turn then offer to your residential customers. These would include a variety of home care services, whether it's warranty or on-demand repair services, HVAC maintenance and service programs. We have protection programs for all of the internal devices in the home, including all of your smart home technologies. We can build in-home installation programs around installing and servicing things like smart home devices, smart thermostats, et cetera. We leverage essentially a large base of contractors throughout the United States. We're constantly adding them. We average about 550 some odd home repairs per day. We operate 3 different call centers with about 420 agents now, give or take. So basically, we're inside the home providing a variety of value-added behind-the-meter solutions, if you will. Thanks, Patrice.
All right, thanks, Rob. And now we'll move on to Alex, who's with Reliant.
Yeah, thanks, Patrice. Alex Seegers with Reliant. And Reliant is part of Energy, which generates electricity and provides energy solutions to our more than 3.5 million customers across the US and in Canada. And NRG's competitive residential electricity business includes Reliant and is actually one of the largest in the country. Now, our core business at Reliant is in retail electricity in the deregulated Texas market. However, our greater mission is really to power, protect, and simplify our customers' lives by bringing electricity services and home security solutions, as well as a variety of related services to homes and businesses throughout Texas. Now, Reliant takes great pride in putting our customers and the customer experience at the forefront of everything that we do. And a big portion of that is empowering our customers with innovative tools and technology that not only allow them to manage their whole home energy footprint, but their entire household. And how this really translates down to home services is that outside of energy products, Reliant currently offers AC and heat services, whole home interactive security solutions, as well as a variety of other products. But in addition to our current portfolio, we're continuously looking at new energy and non-electricity product offerings, including new partnerships, as well as internally generated initiatives. And really the mission of that is to make sure that we're providing customers with ongoing value as well as relevant products for new and existing customers. And that's really at the core of what we do. So looking forward to the discussion today and I'm glad to be here.
Great, thank you, Alex. And now we'll move on to Mike, and Mike is with Constellation. Go ahead, Mike.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Perfect.
All right, I was worried about that. So Mike Waisgrass with Constellation, and just a little bit about Constellation. We are the competitive energy business of Exelon. Exelon is a large integrated energy provider in the United States. It's the #1 utility in the United States with 10 million customers, and also the #1 generator of zero carbon energy, the largest operator of nuclear power in the country. And the Constellation business is the largest energy supply business in the country. We serve all major choice markets with over 1.9 million customers, 200,000 of which are business customers. In the mass markets business where I sit, and I manage growth and innovation activities for the mass markets business, we also have a large home services business that's in over 1,000 homes a day. So we get a lot of opportunity to talk to customers, where they live. And we have just recently also launched a connected home product line, which provides, in addition to security and home automation, an integrated energy management platform, that focuses on optimizing comfort, convenience, and energy efficiency. So looking forward to talking to everyone today. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Now, before we get into the discussion, I do want to remind you that there is a poll question, and you can find it under that poll tab in that live discussion section of SwapCard. So I do invite you to participate in that poll, as we will be coming to that poll throughout the discussion. So just trying to see how your thoughts sort of jive with what the panelists are saying. All right, so just a reminder there. All right, so the first question that I'm going to go ahead and throw out to the panel is talking about HVAC services. I know, well, some of you might have seen my presentation earlier where I sort of just examining what we're seeing from the consumer point of view where HVAC monitoring services are concerned. We did see where more than half of households say they would be interested in paying for the service, but we know that what they say in the surveys sometimes does not quite sync up with what they do in reality. So I want to hear your thoughts on, just what you think that real opportunity is in the near term for HVAC monitoring services being provided or offered by the utility. And Mike, I'd ask you to kick that one off.
Yeah, certainly. So, I think HVAC monitoring holds a huge potential, for the industry. Obviously HVAC is the largest, as you pointed out earlier, most people realize it's the largest consumer of energy in their home, and they have, frequent issues with it, in terms of, being able to keep it operating efficiently or preventing breakdowns. So I think smart thermostats are obviously, a key component of the monitoring of those systems. The issue from a business model perspective really is one of scale. While every home has a thermostat, they're not all smart. They're not all, the same thermostats and things like that. So I think to the extent that you can get data, from the thermostat to be able to do that and monitor it, it's helpful. But what we found very useful is access to the smart meter data. So we partner with a company called Grid4C, and we've been able to provide, as part of our energy plans in certain markets, the ability to, monitor the health and efficiency of these systems. And that's proven to be a real crowd pleaser with our customers, quite frankly. They love it. And the important thing, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in the panel, but the important thing is not only to have the ability to provide those insights and analytics and those early warning systems, but the ability to also help customers solve the problem. And I think that's, I think Arsham in his insights, talked about the fulfillment side of things. And that's, as important, I think, from a business model perspective as the analytics.
So making sure that you're adding value beyond the monitoring will be important for it to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've all seen those LifeLock commercials where, they say you've got a problem, but we're not going to help you fix it. And people don't generally like that.
Right. Did you have some thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah, I do. And that, we look at the problem from a little different perspective in that for us to be able to deploy predictive analytics from a service perspective, to bundle that into an HVAC warranty program, for example, or whether it's on demand or subscriber based, so that we're watching the conditions for you. Those devices can have up to 8 different sensors and can even detect things like a clogged screen, for example. So, the way we envision these devices is to incorporate them into our programs so that we're watching, as you watch, if you care to watch the alarms, we're watching them as well. But it gives us the ability to proactively and preventatively, prevent any kind of, system failure. So, imagine it's sort of like a check engine light, if you will, and that, receiving a call from a service provider such as ourselves saying, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, we're watching your unit. We're seeing some conditions right now that seem to potentially could be troubling. Or if it is in fact troubling, we're going to go ahead and dispatch a truck. Because you do have these programs, under our care. Of course, we're going to take care of this for you at no cost. But I think, the big picture is being able to prevent problems from occurring to begin with. I would not want to put a piece of duct tape over my check engine light or any of the gauges in my car, and not know what's going on. So if that unit is starting to not feel well, we're going to know about it, and then we can react proactively and responsibly and pick up the tab in the process. So we're very excited about the technology as a whole.
Yeah, 2 very important points. Be proactive and make sure you're helping them to solve the problem. Any other thoughts on that? All right, I am going to move to the next question, which is, I know I kicked it off with HVAC monitoring, because obviously we're talking a lot about energy, but what other services do you think provide a strong opportunity or a strong bundling opportunity for utilities or any other energy service provider? And Alex, you might want to jump in on this one.
Yeah, sure. And I think from a Reliance perspective, we see tremendous value in security services, as well as a number of other ancillary services. So for us, operating in a competitive market where customers have the ability to choose their provider, we wanted to provide additional value beyond keeping the lights on and providing a monthly bill. So we found that the ancillary services like HVAC monitoring and security not only made business sense for us, but made sense in the minds of consumers as well. They could make that connection and would put us in their consideration set for these other types of services. So I think HVAC monitoring, security, there's a number of other services that make sense from an energy provider's perspective. Now, I think something that we quickly adopted in the years since we began offering these products is the regular evaluation and evolution of the product set in order to continue to succeed. And I think that's imperative. It's important because we're now seeing a lot of consumer technology companies enter the space, and the consumer technology trends are influencing and in a lot of cases elevating customer expectations. And I think that's great. I think that ensures that we're providing a good solution, a competitive solution, and ultimately it benefits the customer. So we're creating happy customers, which translate to longer term customers, which effectively is the goal for any of these types of products and services.
Yeah, you did mention that, these services made sense in the minds of your customers to get them from a utility. Is there anything that gives a utility in your mind a competitive advantage for providing these services over any other provider out there?
We have the in-home relationship with a lot of our consumers already. So for utilities, for energy providers, they have trust in it, whether it's the reputation because of customer service or reliability, but the relationship is there. And I think that allows customers to then make a consideration for additional services. And I think it's logical because it's all within the home. So expanding beyond just keeping your lights on and having that service, expanding to additional services and products, it makes complete sense. If it's an advantage, I'd say it is an advantage, but it makes sense logically.
Okay, got it. Okay. Anyone have any other thoughts on services that utilities should be considering or any other energy provider?
Well, I think Alex hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways. In the energy space, energy is not a highly interactive, kind of business, by and large, unless something goes wrong, obviously, which we're all, experiencing in some way, today. But, so to find those relevant, adjacent, kinds of solutions to be able to improve customer satisfaction and engagement and relevancy overall is really important. And that's why, when you have technology like smart home that is multi-application capable, it makes sense to do that. And then to Alex's point, from an energy perspective, you have that trust and that relationship with with the consumer. So it makes a lot of sense, for us to be in those businesses.
Makes sense. So what do you guys think then about the opportunity as you brought up smart home devices, Mike, and utilities are increasingly trying to introduce these, whether or not they're leveraging the devices that are already in the home or they're trying to, sell them through their own utility marketplaces. What do you think is the opportunity to provide technical support and warranty for these products from the utility? Is that something consumers would be receptive to? I mean, as a home service.
I think so. I think, and Robert mentioned this in their approach. I think you want to be able to, not only, provide and enable these kinds of applications, but you want to be able to enhance them, provide other devices that can be integrated, into the home and orchestrated, but also the key is making sure that the customers know that you're there to support them. And, I think somebody mentioned in a previous session about, kind of a digital experience to be able to provide support, but then there's also, kind of the next level, whether it's phone service or, in-home repair and support. Those are the key elements, I think, to success. You can't just offer products. You kind of have to have a programmatic approach to the solution.
Right. And let me switch it up a little bit then, Rob, as I come to you. So how important then is it to offer these technical support and warranty services in the market?
Well, obviously we feel it's very important, and it's all about adding value. If your product does not add value or enhance the overall customer experience, then you need to re-examine your product. So that's what we're really all about. And obviously the table stakes are changing with, more and more digital technologies and multiple types of smart home technologies on multiple networks. It's very challenging. A great example just here in the last couple of weeks and working with a large electric utility in the Midwest, they sold a lot of smart thermostats off of their marketplace site. Over 100,000 of them, but 20% of them came back last year simply because of installation issues. So, we feel that there's a really a large need, not for everybody, but to be able to offer it so that, somebody's there to help connect the dots. Not all of us have a 12-year-old in our homes that can provide free, unlimited tech support. So, we feel it's very important to provide in-home installation and ongoing support and just the ability to, just to have a voice that's there, voice of reason to help anytime, help is needed. And, that's a role that we really feel is kind of missing in the industry as a whole, that we want to fill that gap.
Got it. Ken, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the topic is really important. You mentioned warranty, but really what Rob's describing as much as anything is being able to just make sure stuff works for the consumer, both at installation time and over time. And so I think as we've got connected devices in homes, consumers should have the expectation that there's somebody they call when something goes wrong, when the thermostat goes off the network, or when it's not responding, or if they have some other HVAC issue, which we discussed earlier. So I think that's one of the real benefits of having connected devices in the home, is that they can be remotely monitored. You don't always have to roll a truck.
Right. All right. Well, I did sort of talk about that a little bit in my presentation earlier too. And I know you guys are talking about it like, there's an opportunity and, somebody needs to fulfill that opportunity, and utilities certainly can be a player in that space. But I think one of the things that we hit on earlier was that, this can also expand the market for smart home products, because there are a number of consumers who I know, based on the data, are not buying these products simply because there's no one to help them to, determine which product would be best suited for their home. Will this product work with the other products that I have in my home? They're confused or just basically just think, I don't know if it's based on their own experiences with other products or, other people's experiences, that there will be issues setting up and installing the devices and getting it going. And then on the flip side of that, those are the consumers who say they don't buy because they anticipate those issues. On the flip side of that, there are a number of consumers who said, yes, if somebody provided me with technical support and warranty services, then this would make me more likely to purchase a product. So it's really a need in the market, and it's also an opportunity to expand the market for smart home devices for anyone considering, selling those products. All right, let's go a little bit more into home automation, and I'll be going to our poll question very soon after this. So can you, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, a number of you guys mentioned as well, there are a number of other products in the home that are smart, that can really play a role in overall energy management and, beyond the HVAC system, just helping you manage energy throughout the home, right? You have smart lights, whether or not those are strong contributors on their own or not. And then, of course, there are smart plugs, which can turn non-smart devices basically into devices that you can remotely control. Smart appliances, are heavy energy consumers themselves. And, it does take a lot of effort on the part of the consumer to try to manage, and choreograph the load, I guess, with all these devices to really generate energy savings that will be valuable. But of course, these devices themselves, provide the opportunity to, create a bigger sort of unified home automation strategy that helps you save significant energy. So can you talk a little bit more about that opportunity? How important is it? What it might look like? Anything like that? And I'll kick that off with Ken.
Yeah, well, I'll start on that one. I think the basic premise that most of us accept at this point is that everything that can be connected will be connected, at least eventually. And so as we think about, the energy business and energy management and services to consumers, the consumer needs to be at the center of the conversation, the center of the design. So the experience for the consumer needs to be good. It's, as Mike mentioned, it's all about convenience and comfort. If we can keep consumers and users convenient or comfortable and not inconvenienced, then that's half the battle right there. And by being able to do that, then we have the opportunity to maybe more intelligently manage the way that energy is consumed, or the time in which it's consumed, to both help out, sort of the balance of the grid, as well as, obviously the cost to the consumer. Some of those connected devices you mentioned, Patrice, are big consumers of energy. Obviously, we focus a lot on HVAC in this space, but appliances increasingly are connected and have a role to play in that. I think eventually EVs will be much more active in this discussion too, in terms of load. But the other devices in the home, even if they're not consuming a lot of energy, are important. One, because it's still about convenience and comfort. So lighting is just as important as temperature and climate to a user. But also those other devices are great context for us as we're putting together, very intelligent systems. So not everything is just binary. You're going to shut it off, turn it off, or turn it on. You want to know what the context is in that home right now. Is it occupied? Are people there? Are they doing something? Are they active? Are they sleeping? Are they eating? And by being able to know, that lights are going on and off, or that the Roomba is moving around, or that the garage door is closed, might give us some hints as to the context that's going on there. And that data, that information, that context will give us better automations, I guess I would say.
Got it. Any other thoughts on the opportunity for automation and any way in which we should be trying to bring these into the home? What's important when thinking about these services? Any other thoughts on home automation with smart home devices?
If I may, Patrice, I think that Kent really, you hit the nail on the head. So I think from an energy perspective, we can approach the consumer with the energy management message, if it's at the thermostat, if it's lighting, or if it's appliances. But I think eventually it morphs into true whole home automation and intelligent automation. So, sensors in rooms that trigger scenes. So I think that it's easy for the consumer to adopt based on a payback of energy management, but eventually they'll see the whole home automation value. I think there's some research that Parks presented that door locks are amongst the most interesting products from a home automation connected home perspective. That's not energy related at all. However, when you get a thermostat in the home and you introduce the customer to energy management, and then you fold in additional products that create additional value, then eventually the whole home becomes more valuable than just energy. It becomes, a greater whole home experience.
Got it. Any other thoughts before I go to this poll, the poll results?
I'll just add to that, and I'm a geek at heart, so our house and our kids are growing at this point, but, we've got a lot of technologies that I like to play with, but our next door neighbor's house was struck by lightning 2 years ago. Not our house, but the neighbor's house. And it was remarkable, and I was home at the time, just how many of our low voltage devices and things that did connect, mostly via wires, that were taken out throughout the house. So just, understanding that as you start to build up all of this technology in your home, things like surge protection and, whether it's a virtual program that we offer or a physical device that goes on your meter, especially those that are in, prone areas for a lot of lightning or, tropical storms, hurricanes, etc. Having gone through that myself personally, it was awful and extremely expensive, to the tune of about $8,000 worth of technology repair. So just, as we start to build out this inventory of all of these, new technologies, cameras and, smart speakers and all of this other stuff, just recognizing that they don't fare well when when there's significant spikes in power. So just think of ways to protect that. And that can save you a lot of aggravation and a lot of money long term.
It's an important consideration to build into any home automation strategy that we're trying to launch. Good point. All right, let's see then. You all have talked about the opportunity for offering all these services. So let's just see what the audience thinks is the most, or which of the following services provide the strongest bundling opportunity with utility services? That's the question that they were asked. And of course, energy management using smart home devices is the answer that sticks out, or the service that sticks out to the audience. So 60% of the audience believes that the energy management services that leverage smart home devices will be the most significant bundling opportunity. Home automation services, nobody selected that answer. And I think that's partly because it's kind of connected to energy management using smart home devices. One looks at it sort of at an individual device level. The other one looks at it more of a, choreographing all the different devices to create value. What else stood out for the audience? HVAC monitoring services is the one that came next in line, and 20% of the audience perceived that will provide the strongest bundling opportunities. And then smart security solutions came next in line with 15%, and only 5% said HVAC warranty services. So there you go on what the audience thinks. Does anyone have any thoughts on what the audience thinks before we move on?
I think it's an interesting question, and one of the things that has been mentioned a couple of times today, with these additional products and services and different capabilities or additional capabilities, is really the orchestration of all of these things together and the user experience, quite frankly, because I think that's kind of one of the biggest barriers. Alex talked about it. Kent's company specializes in this, in terms of kind of the integration of multi-protocol, types of devices. Felicity mentioned it in the talk right before this. And so I think, that to me is the big, opportunity in terms of scaling these kinds of solutions, because some of the other devices like the smart plugs and smart lights, those are good. It is part of, as Kent said, it's as much a part of, the environment as other things, but they don't yield that much in terms of benefit, in terms of energy management benefit as much as the other things. So to integrate them seamlessly into the whole solution, I think is the key, to driving adoption.
Or what do you think? What do you think about the fact that only 5% think warranty services will be good bundling opportunities? I know your team thinks differently about that. So what do you think about that 5%?
Yeah, I think I would guess that the complexities of integrating an offer like that, is can be challenging. But we have a unique business model in the sense that we have technicians that work for our company that we have in multiple markets, that stand behind our warranty. And by bundling this service in an energy rate plan, making it part of the subscription, if you will, for the consumer, it's been very effective for us, and it's been very valuable. And it's not just anecdotal. We see it in terms of kind of our CSAT and NPS scores, and then churn for customers who have those services bundled together versus ones who don't, is different.
Yeah. So you kind of hit on two things that I wanted to touch on. So the first one was the barriers. You did mention that having that really good user experience is going to be important for the success of any of these programs. So one of the questions that I had, because what we're seeing, we're talking about energy management using smart devices being a good opportunity. We're also seeing it in the poll results where 60% of the audience thinks that's the strongest bundling opportunity. But that's not what we're seeing in the market now. Not a lot of utilities have actually started initiatives that leverage these smart home devices to launch or create or build these energy management sources, which our audience and some of you think have such strong potential. So any thoughts on what's holding the market back? You did mention integration, I think, Mike, but any thoughts on what else could be holding the market back? Why haven't more utilities sort of created these programs or launched these initiatives around smart home devices is what I'm trying to get at. And anyone can start.
Well, I look at the advent of marketplaces as a whole with utilities. I mean, utilities are pretty conservative by nature and have been for many, many years. Yet you look at the advent of marketplaces and how quickly, literally in about 5 or 6 years, 45%, I think, give or take, of most utilities have adopted some form of a marketplace site. And they're learning a lot in the process in terms of kind of what to do with these. And in many instances, it's just hard to find the marketplace site in a utility's website. So, I mean, just things like placement and promotion. And, they've grown well beyond just that of LED light bulbs and 1 or 2 smart thermostats. There's a lot of competition out there to, where you can buy those sort of things. But I think we're a work in progress. And, it's interesting to watch the deregulated side and how, if all of a sudden every utility on this call, had to fight for their customer on a daily basis, things change. And so it's always been interesting to watch the deregulated side and how quickly they tend to adopt, new, sort of budding technologies, whereas conventional utilities as a whole just don't have that pressure in terms of, their customer base. But I think it's a process, and I think that the process it's now started. It's moving. We talk to utilities every day that are really recognizing more and more of their role in sort of the whole behind the meter movement, and realizing how just the advent of the smart thermostat and how that came from kind of a totally different perspective that wasn't driven by the utilities at all, and now with home batteries or solar, and it's getting to be a competitive market out there. So I think we get it as an industry. It's just going to take a little more time, and we're just going to move slowly. But I think we're starting to really pick up momentum, and it's a work in progress. It'll be interesting to ask that same question a year from now.
Great. So there's not enough competition then to drive the utilities to take the necessary steps or invest in these systems. So certainly too, I'm thinking there's a component of technical expertise too, just to be able to create the services that we said will require a little, technical knowledge of how to integrate different products into different systems to create that value that consumers need. I think so. I mean, do you think that might be an issue, just having that level of technical expertise to really build systems that might add value? You think that might be a barrier? And can you talk about any of the barriers that you might see the utilities launching these services?
I think the technical expertise and just the overall risk that Rob was mentioning. I mean, I think utilities historically, obviously, their job stops at the meter, and anything kind of beyond the meter into the home had been previously sort of off limits to them, and only recently, within the last several years, have companies, especially the more innovative ones, kind of gone beyond that to start touching things like the thermostat or other type of devices. And it's great to see actually the progress that's been made and the kind of focus on user experience that I think is improving. I didn't really give my background at the beginning of this, but many years ago, I was CTO of a company called Tendril, and many of you know Tendril. Emily actually gave one of the talks earlier today from Tendril, but even back then, back in 2008 to 2012, we were trying to help get utilities really excited about what they could do beyond the meter, and it did take much longer, as Rob said, than I think any of us thought it would before that was really embraced. But it's happening now. It is, and the technical expertise, I think, the additional sort of risks as well as costs associated with that is something that gives pause, I think. But I think there's enough good proof points out in the market right now, as well as a lot of companies who are specialized in solving these problems, some of which are gathered around the table today, that make this now a lot less steep hill to climb.
One of the things, Patrice, I think people, in all fairness to the regulated utilities, the hurdle for a regulated company to get something put into the rate base or to invest, money into solutions is a little higher than your typical, kind of competitive environment. So they have that to deal with. They also, kind of have to deal with all segments of the market. So to be able to deliver solutions that address low and moderate income as well as other segments can present challenges. And so so I think to Rob and Kent's point, that it's not so much a lack of desire or opportunity or technical expertise. It's they've got to kind of work through a different process than competitive providers. That said, some of the Exelon utilities are in the process right now of kind of moving forward with connected home pilots and trials. Baltimore Gas and Electric has a program called Connected Annapolis that is been receiving a lot of really, really good feedback from the community, from the regulators in Maryland. So it's happening. It's just, I think it's just a little, they're operating in a different environment than the rest of us sometimes. And so it's a little more difficult.
No, understood. And thank you for highlighting that. Now, let me go back on the second point that you touched on, which was the business model aspect of this. And you did mention that, your monitoring services are sort of bundled into the consumer's rate plan. And that's sort of the model that has worked for you when offering HVAC monitoring services. So I just want to know, I know a lot of the services that are traditionally in consumers' homes, it's all about the monthly subscription or yearly subscription sometimes, depending on what works better for consumers. But what do you think are the best business models to bring these services to market, or for you guys who already have these services in the market, what business models are working? And I think I can kick that off with you, Alex.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think one that's honestly currently evolving, because to your point, Patrice, for a long time, it was all about bundling with the energy plan. And that often meant a long-term or multi-month contract over either the term of the energy plan or extending beyond that. I think maybe consumer attitudes towards longer-term contracts is changing or has changed, which is driven, again, probably by the consumer marketplace. However, it also appears that the consumer appetite for paying upfront or having a larger upfront cost for solutions and services has changed as well. Previously, that was a barrier I think we witnessed in the market for a long time, that consumers didn't want to pay a hefty upfront fee for services or products. They would rather roll it into a multi-year contract. I think that is changing a little bit, so it might impact future business models, and almost for a lot of these products and services, it would to some extent be a requirement or a necessity for providers, energy and the like, to evaluate alternative term plans for products and services moving forward.
Got it. Now, Rob, I know you have some thoughts on that too, as you bring multiple different products and services to market. So what are the business models that work?
Well, so I think, why wouldn't the utility want to be involved in anything and everything that their services touch, within the house? So I think, there is this evolution that's soon to be a revolution, kind of all things beyond the meter. I think three critical aspects for the utility to really understand is their ability to provide I'll call it stickiness, if you will. So regardless of the product or the service, and I did want to point out, there's some real industry leaders right now, like BG&E Home or Dominion's Bright Suite organization, where utilities are creating these deregulated entities, that can operate a lot more swiftly, around the regulators. That is certainly becoming quite a strong movement, and hats off to these folks for doing just that. That's how we got in the industry. We started offering these programs to our own customer base, recognizing the importance to turn them public facing. But from a business model, what I'm thinking of in terms of Patrice is the things like the three key points that we found over the last 28 years. The utilities have an incredible power that they can easily tie into. One, and that's just co-branding. Anytime a utility wants to lend its name to a product or a service, provides a significant amount of trust that just immediately takes effect. The ability to add any of these services on bill. So, if you just stop and think about this, during that sort of decision-making process, being able to just say, well, would you like to add this, $4 charge to your utility bill? And if the answer is yes, check the box and bingo. I don't receive a separate bill. I don't have to write a separate check. The convenience of just saying, let's do it. On-bill capabilities add a tremendous amount of value. And then thirdly is leveraging the move call during that start service or transfer service, when most new customers or customers that are moving service have that opportunity to talk to a utility CSR or a third party that can provide those services. Just that live interaction to be able to talk about the programs very quickly during a lot of decision making is going on during that that move process. I'm starting new service or I'm transferring new service. To be able to understand what those services are, ask questions about them, talk to a subject matter expert, and then be able to sign up by just simply saying, okay, that sounds great, I'd like to try it. Those three categories, on bill, the move call, and then co-branding or providing that brand, that element of trust, regardless of the product or the service, if you really want to increase participation or penetration, those are the three core kind of entities that will really drive that. Our for the 35 plus utilities that we partner with, to get to like 25-26% participation or penetration, you really have to turn those, kind of look to those three services and the impact and the power that they provide, regardless of the product or the service.
Got it. So lots of different approaches and interesting approaches too, but it kind of sounds to me like we're all thinking that, that subscription business model is probably still going to be the best approach when dealing with home services. I was trying to get a sense of, whether or not anyone was thinking there's anything more innovative that, we could be thinking of as consumers talk about subscription fatigue. So I was just wondering if there was anything there, but it sounds like we're all stuck on the subscription or think the subscription is probably going to be the most useful or fitting business model going forward. Make sense? All right. So we're looking now, switching a little bit, and I'm going to go and take some questions from the audience in a second, but I did want to hit on the different markets first before I did that. So I want to look at the opportunity within the multifamily space? I know most of the times we talk about this, there's an inherent, or there's an underlying theme of addressing the single family home, and that's what I get from a lot of the discussions that I have. So is the single family home still the best target for these home services that we're talking about, or is there an opportunity in the multifamily market for these services? And anyone can go with that. Go ahead.
Well, let's start. I'm sure we all have some opinion on this, but yes, multifamily is a great opportunity. I think, it is different. You're right, in terms of kind of the value chain, perhaps you'd say, because oftentimes with multifamily, there's a property manager, a property owner, or maybe an HOA, or somebody who contracts at a larger volume, and can not only outfit a whole building, either at build time or whenever they're doing updates, to be able to put more smart gear in it, but also, collectively have more residences that can participate in these events. And obviously volume is a big deal when we're talking about energy management on the grid. So it is really interesting, and there's more and more what we see every day. I mean, we're not technically in the energy business, but where we're seeing so much of the innovation where people are building on and around our platform is around the multifamily space right now. We're seeing some really fantastic stuff. So there's more gear going into those buildings, and more services and again, they're largely around comfort and convenience for the consumers, but also around efficiency, if you will. What can the building manager, the building owner, or the residents do to basically reduce costs or increase revenue?
Yep. Any other thoughts on the opportunity in the multifamily space? Is it a better opportunity? Any thoughts on that as well?
It's big for sure. I think from where I sit, it's just harder. As Kent said, you're dealing with different potential decision makers, in that whole ecosystem. I think Felicity in her talk beforehand, talked about the complexities and that it's a beast, quote unquote beast, and so there's technical challenges, there's channel challenges and things like that. So that's why I think it's a little bit harder. But the size of the prize is huge. The opportunity there is huge, no question about it.
All right, thanks for that. Any other thoughts? All right, let's go on over to our audience questions. So the first one is, given the utility revenue theme, can the panelists comment on opt-in rate incentives for EVs and storage discharged according to DER interaction up and back to the DERMS? And anyone who has thoughts on this can go first.
No one wants to jump in.
Yeah, let's go into let's evaluate some other questions as well. All right, there's another question here. Are we addressing the issue of resiliency for homes in combination with demand response and load reduction? These questions are kind of adjacent to the home services theme that we were talking about, but if you have thoughts on any one of these, especially if you're in the utility space, and energy management, energy provision, and you have thoughts on this, yeah, please share. And I can repeat the question too. Are we addressing the issue of resiliency for the home in combination with demand response and the load reduction? So resiliency there could be an opportunity, a service that we could bundle into any of the home services that we're talking about, or into utilities as well. We just did some research recently, trying to find out from consumers, what would they be willing to pay for a service that would ensure that they could keep their energy supply up and running even during a blackout. And I can't remember offhand, what the different responses were, but there were a significant percentage of consumers that say, yeah, they would pay a 5% increase on their bill or a 10% difference in their bill, to ensure that they had that level of resiliency, even during a blackout. So that's actually a good, bundling opportunity for traditional energy services, and really a good fit for utilities or anyone offering any kind of distributing energy storage or generation, systems. So does anyone have any thoughts on these?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to be brief in this because, again, this is not my area of expertise. However, we have seen people who are customers, partners of Unomi working on really interesting, essentially microgrid types of services, whether it's down to an individual house that can basically keep operating when maybe the larger grid goes down, to kind of neighborhood-oriented microgrids where things like solar and storage are more shared among a group of homes, and it's really interesting, and it seems like this innovation, or at least the ideas for them, are born from disasters that are happening out there, and obviously disasters continue. We saw some this past week that many of you lived through in Texas. But the California wildfires and hurricanes and things like that, I think, are really creating more awareness and sensitivity, and probably demand for more resiliency. And I do suspect that consumers would pay for that.
I think that's right. Patrice, and Kent makes a good point. This really, I think that the core of these questions is really around, storage and solar and other things like that. And I think, and to Kent's point, energy in general, people don't think about it until it's not there. And so, so resiliency and redundancy and other things like that is important. And I think if you look at some of the innovative companies out there, like Sunrun, for example, has done some, really interesting deployments and partnerships with utilities. And they've got some pretty good use cases out there. And I think, from an energy company perspective, if we don't look at the full, spectrum of things in the home, whether it's using EVs to dispatch load, in terms of a demand response event, or using battery backup in the event of an outage and things like that. So those are all the kinds of things that fit into this category, from a product and service offering.
Yeah, it makes sense. What do you think about it, Alex? What do you think about the fact that consumers say, this is so important to us that we would be willing to pay extra on our monthly bill to ensure that this doesn't happen? And it might not even be something that, happens that regularly, but they're saying they'd be willing to pay extra on their bill to ensure that they stayed up and running. Do you think that's kind of an opportunity that makes sense to pursue?
Yeah, I certainly think that there's opportunity there. I think you'd have to solution down to exactly what sort of product and service would be feasible for that solution. I know, at least from Reliant's perspective, our services business does have a whole home generator partnership. So we're somewhat addressing that, and we have ways to offer customers access to whole home generators or smaller generator opportunities and solutions. However, those are very big purchases. So rolling it into a bill is a great opportunity, and you need to get really creative with the scale and the cost of those types of solutions. I imagine that they're going to be a little bit more top of mind, especially down here in Texas, moving forward. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity for innovation, and being that resiliency is top of mind for consumers.
Yep, interesting. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about, I know a lot of these services that we mentioned earlier are not traditionally in the wheelhouse of utility. We talked about, security, HVAC monitoring, providing warranties. So try to think, and I know different utilities, different energy providers are approaching this in different ways. I know some are, have completely homegrown solutions, as well as some are going into this space using a partner. So wanted to get a sense from you guys, is it better to create the homegrown solutions, or go into these with a partner who have expertise in these areas, and sort of what are the pros and cons of both? Maybe you want to kick that off, Rob? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. It's a great question. It's interesting that I think I remember it was the chief technology officer at Austin Energy when he was making a presentation several years ago, and it's just always stayed with me that if any organization, utility or commercial organization, if you can't build it in less than a year, outsource it. Was his response, and I always loved that, and I think it makes for a real good rule of thumb. And things like, there are a lot of things that we're involved with that have a lot of moving parts. When you're leveraging a large, contractor network or a call center or product offerings, is this really your core competency? So, my suggestion would be to first, look at the industry experts out there, find the best partner for you that really specializes in that, whatever that particular service is. And start off that way. One, it makes for a great pilot. It's the whole software as a service subscription model makes it very easy to test the waters, so to speak. Take the car and drive it for the next year or two and see if you like it, and then if you do, buy it. So it's easy to get into that space by finding a great partner. It's then at a point where down the road, is this something we want to stay in? If so, how can we expand it? Kind of a phased implementation, crawl, walk, run. Makes a lot of sense. And then ultimately, if you're really confident about all of this, you could always bring it in-house at that point. But it's a great, I think, through a partnership, a third-party vendor, it's a great way to test the waters. It's a great way to get things up and running quickly. And then you're learning quite a bit in that process. Conversely, I've talked to several utilities. In fact, some of them I think are joining us this afternoon that have provided these services that have grown so quickly over the years that now they realize, gosh, we had no idea that this was going to, be that big of an entity to have to manage. And now they find themselves, thinking, are we at a point where we want to sell it or find a third party to help us manage? So it can kind of go both ways. But I think bottom line is, for those that are not offering these services, find a partner and be able to pilot it, test the waters before you have to invest a lot of time and energy and technology and dollars. Just take it for a test drive. And you could even do that internally with your own employees as an internal pilot. So I think, having the third-party programs or third-party vendors makes it very easy to test the waters and then ultimately make the decision. Do we really want to be in this space? And then make your decision that way.
Excellent point. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Ken, certainly you have some thoughts on, that whole part of tying it all together. The utility might not have all those capabilities, in-house on their own. So in that case, does it make sense to go in with a partner, or should they kind of learn the ropes and do it themselves? Because everything in every organization is so unique to them. So what makes more sense here?
Well, yeah. Obviously, I think you need to leverage the talent and expertise of the folks who are specialists at what they do. And I think it's very hard to replicate that. Even things that look simple almost never are. So I think in any industry, whether it's energy or healthcare or anything else, kind of, know what your core is and what your context is, and outsource your context. I like the heuristic that Rob said too. If it takes you longer than a year to build it, outsource it. But the other heuristic is, is it core, essential to your business, or is it a contextual piece of your business? Is it really somebody else's business? So tap into the people who in some cases have already invested millions of dollars in solving problems and made all the mistakes, and found all the bugs, and tested with real life consumers, because you don't typically have the time or the benefit to remake all those mistakes along the way.
All right, thank you, Ken. And that will have to be our last comment as we are up on our time. Thank you so much for what I found to be a very interesting conversation. So thank you, Rob, thank you, Mike, thank you, Ken, and thank you, Alex. I really appreciated it. I would like to also invite everyone now to go ahead and join us. We'll be continuing the discussion in the networking discussions. I believe a link will be in the discussions tab that you can that you can just click on into it. It's a Zoom discussion, so you should be able to access that in your discussion tab and swap card. Before we go, I do once again want to thank our sponsors, Bidgely, Austin Energy, Oceago, Flow, and American Water Homeowner Services. Again, we really appreciate your contribution to making this event a success. Again, also, we want to thank our supporters and our industry associations who support the event. And also, just a reminder that you can definitely reach out to us for your research needs. You can reach out to anyone at Parks Associates or contact Julie Kistler. Her information is right there up on your screen if you have any immediate needs. And up next, we will have our networking discussion, which is again sponsored by American Water Homeowner Services. So thank you very much. All right, so I'll see you over there in a minute. Thank you again for joining.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Capice, and I am a Strategic Account Manager for Parks Associates Executive Conferences and Custom Marketing Services. First, I want to thank our sponsors for supporting our event today. Your combined and individual support helps make our events possible. As you may know, Parks Associates is a woman-owned and trusted market research firm with an excellent reputation for our research and executive conferences. While 2020 is a year that we will certainly never forget, it remains our goal in 2021 to serve and support our sponsors through our year-long virtual conferences and custom marketing services. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Capice, and I am a Strategic Account Manager for Parks Associates Executive Conferences and Custom Marketing Services. First, I want to thank our sponsors for supporting our event today. Your combined and individual support helps make our events possible. As you may know, Parks Associates is a woman-owned and trusted market research firm with an excellent reputation for our research and executive conferences. While 2020 is a year that we will certainly never forget, it remains our goal in 2021 to serve and support our sponsors through our year-long virtual conferences and custom marketing services. Our conferences offer a unique combination of industry expertise and extensive consumer research and analysis, ensuring sponsors visibility to the right audience of our senior executives throughout the year. Connections, the premier connected home conference, is celebrating its 25th year and hosting more than 1,300 senior executives from the smart home, security, connected health, energy, and home automation industries during sessions throughout the year. Our 12th annual Smart Energy Summit addresses the evolution of the customer utility market, the impact of COVID-19, and new opportunities to drive engagement in utility-sponsored programs and energy-efficient solutions. Parks Associates' 8th annual Connected Health Summit addresses opportunities for connected health solutions to empower consumers, caregivers, and providers to meet the growing demand, independent living, chronic care management, remote access, and wellness and fitness solutions. Our 4th annual Future of Video, OTT, Pay TV, and digital media brings together senior leaders to share insights on consumer adoption, churn, and spending on services, including the role of the connected CE in the growth of video viewing. If you are looking for new ways to engage with our audiences, increase your brand awareness, and network with our industry leaders, I would love to share with you on how to partner with Parks Associates to help provide your brand more visibility.